47-year-old Mazen al-Hamada, a Syrian human rights activist, was found dead in Sinai prison, Syria. His body was found with many signs of torture and starvation. Mazen's story will forever resonate with millions of Syrians because of all that he did just to see his home and his people free again.
Mazen joined as many anti-Assad protests as he could, posting pictures next to the signs and posters with Free Syria slogans on his Facebook and Twitter. He coordinated many anti-regime protests. He hoped to find a way to make a difference in Syria's condition. He genuinely believed he could make a difference and inspired others to stand up against the regime as well.
Mazen was arrested in 2011 alongside millions of others for being a part of anti-Bashar protests. Mazen was arrested because he was caught in a cafe by Syrian intelligence officers trying to smuggle baby formula into a besieged area. The officers then proceeded to dump Mazen into the back of a pickup truck, where he was unmasked by having his shirt pulled over his head and his hands tied behind his back. After a couple minutes of driving, Mazen asked the officers where they were going. The officers responded that they were going to the Air Force Intelligence Branch. Mazen was interrogated by Syrian officers. They asked him if he had any weapons, which he responded no. They subjected him to torture in horrible conditions. For example, intelligence officers laid him down on the ground and proceeded to jump up and down on his chest, breaking multiple ribs. They then proceeded to hang him by his wrists above the ground in a dark room alone for hours without feeding him or giving him water. When they returned to the room, they brought a clamp, which they then attached to his genitals and began to tighten, until, quote, it felt like it was going to cut off your penis, end quote.
احنا قاعدين نشرب شاي عم نمزح ونضحك بين بعضنا تماما ما نحس الا بست كبس الامن حطوا القمصان براسنا انا حطوني بباجاج السياره لحد ما وصلنا مكان اول سؤال سالتهم يا انا وين وهم يقول انت بمطار المزه فرع المخابرات الجويه اخذوني مددوني بالارض كسروا لي ضلاعي هاي الاضلاع يطلع فوق ويدبج فوقي تحس هاي طق 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 دفر على وجهك بكاس بالعصي.
And how do you feel about the people who did that to you?
في الله بيحسبه في قضاء بيحسبه راح اسعى الا ما اجيبه مع المحكمه واخذ حقي بالقانون. حقي وحق رفقاتي اللي قتلوا. لو بتكلفني حياتي بدي لاحقهم ولا بجيبهم على القضاء.
Realizing he was no longer safe in Syria, Mazen fled to the Netherlands to seek asylum. The 10 years that Mazen lived in the Netherlands, he did nothing but speak about his people and his home, speaking at conferences and still spreading awareness about what the Syrian people are going through and what he went through. But the more Mazen spoke about Syria, the more Syria deteriorated, seeing friends, family dying, and his home being destroyed. Mazen couldn't bear to stand there and not help. The pain of his trauma and not being able to go home slowly led to his mental health to progressively worsen.
After fleeing to the Netherlands, Mazen al-Hamada makes the daring decision to return to Syria and help in the protests and volunteer. His most likely motive for returning to Syria is that he was yearning for his home and as well as feeling extreme empathy for the people that are suffering in Syria because of the attacks carried out by Bashar and the ongoing conflict. This added on to the fact that Mazen was supposedly lured to Syria by a spy working with Syrian intelligence. This spy's name was Mazen, and he was paid 800,000 euros for 3 years of luring opposers to the Assad regime back to Syria.
انت نازل على دمشق، انت شو حيصير فيك بعد ما تنزل؟ فورا حتعتقل. انت شو مفكر حالك يا مازن؟
معلش ان شاء الله خير اختي. وكتب والله بس الحين
انا عم بنصحك، العمل هذا سيء جدا يا مازن اللي عم تعمله. انا عم بنصحك.
انا زادي انا بدي اضحي بحالي مشان اوقف نزيف الدم اللي عم يصير.
Police would then be notified, and as soon as they would return, they would be arrested and taken to prison. After returning to Syria, Syrian police were waiting for Mazen in Damascus, and he was promptly arrested again.
Mazen died last December as his body was found dead in a prison. When people found him, he had fractures, burn marks, and contusions all over his body. His nose was broken, and it seemed he was tortured before he had died. His funeral was held in the capital, in Damascus. He told the world about the tortures happening in Syria. He was a symbol of the war for everyone involved in and out of the crisis. His bravery with telling his stories will always be an inspiration to the Syrian people and the whole world.